Book Club. I am Sid2, aka Ian Harrington. This week this month rather, we're discussing Captain America: Man Out of Time. And the Comic Book Club, for those that don't know, is a live show where anyone who has read and owns a copy of the book or has read it legally can join. So today with me, I have the Vacuuminator. Say hello.
Bendis is coming!
Indeed, indeed. We have Robert Emmett. Say hello, Robert. He's like waving down in the corner. Robert's in an internet cafe, so this will be interesting. We have Red Leader Antilles.
Hi.
Yay. We have Nathan Snyder.
Hello.
And we have Dr. Holocron.
Thanks, Mark Waid, for making Captain America great again.
Hi, everyone. And we've got a couple people I see in the chat. For those that don't know, if you have a microphone and headphones and preferably a webcam, you can join the call. The link is in the description if you want to join. If you guys are going to stay in the chat the whole time, do me a favor. And if anyone comes in saying, hey, how do I join? Let them know the link's in the description so I don't have to. All right, anyway.
We'll try and moderate more this time.
Maybe, probably not. That's work. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to talk about Mark Waid's Captain America: Man Out of Time. The reason I picked this is because I remember it being a really good standalone Captain America story, but it's funny that I picked it right after we talked about The Man Who Laughs, because it is doing literally the exact same thing, where it is taking an old issue from, you know, the Silver Golden Age and then retelling it in a modern context for new continuity. I think that, like, you know, we got into arguments about The Man Who Laughs last time. Would you guys across the board agree that this does it better than The Man Who Laughs?
In some ways.
Yeah.
I haven't read The Man Who Laughs, but I think this is a great attempt at that concept.
I think this is a good job of the shifting timeline stuff with Marvel, certainly. I mean, Marvel's a different beast because their Avengers #4 is still canon up until, what, last year? Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
this is a really good job of balancing both updating and technically still being 100% canon with Avengers 4. It's hard to pull off. And Wade's perfect for that kind of stuff.
What about you, Robert?
Yeah, I think I kind of enjoyed this a bit more than The Man Who Laughs, purely because I thought it was a lot more character driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked I really liked Cap's arc throughout it and stuff like that. And I'll get more into that later. But yeah, I personally like this a lot more than I like Man of Laughs. That's also partially down to, I feel like The Man Who Laughs could have actually benefited from being a bit longer, and this is like a proper sort of graphic novel length.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool. Nathan Snyder, I don't know if you spoke up or not. Did you think this did a better job with the concept of retelling a story than The Man Who Laughs?
Yeah, pretty much. I thought this was a pretty good reintroduction, or introduction if you want to get into Captain America, I guess. Mm-hmm. My favorite aspect is possibly when he has to learn about the current stuff now. It's all weird to him, I guess.
Robert, I'm sorry. Can you mute your mic again, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I said, Robert's in an internet cafe, so sorry for any background noise, folks. But hey, we're not getting too picky on the connection. Anyway, so yeah, like Robert was saying, I really like Cap's arc in this personally, because one of the things for me that like was a real wall for me to get into Captain America is a lot of the stuff I'd seen just here and there over the years had Cap like focused on this, oh, things were better in my generation stuff, and kind of like pining for the past. And I always found that vaguely annoying and a bit whiny. And this takes that and then just makes him deal with it and realize that he has rose-colored glasses and he has to like finally fully confront and see the bullshit of his time period. And I thought that was a really strong move.
Yeah, and if I may, I've said it a couple times on Twitter leading up to this live show, but this was one of the first comics I ever read, certainly the first comic I ever read to completion, and it's what made me fall in love with Cap as a character, because I've never seen overly nostalgic Captain America as what that character should be. This is kind of one of the quintessential Cap stories to me, not because it's the first one I read, but because it's a story where he goes in sort of naive to this issue, and then he's sort of, over the course of the story, he gets more and more of it brought to the forefront by other characters, and instead of sort of going, oh, you're right, America sucks because of this, and sort of human life sucks because of this, he comes out going, no, this is an issue, but things are still great. This is just something we need to work on.
Yeah, I wouldn't say great. I'd say the things have definitely improved. I really like the role that Tony Stark and Cap's former commander play in this story, wherein Stark like has this, visionary like Tony Stark is a futurist. Tony Stark has this visionary futurist perspective on, American progress. And there's obviously things to be proud of that have happened in this country in the last 70 to 80 years. That being said, there's a lot of dirt that he doesn't focus on, and I like the way that's juxtaposed with the commander that actually had to live through it. And I think the ultimate moment of that was Cap got to see Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, and he talks with his commander about that, and he goes, "Yeah, it was a great speech. It moved a whole nation. Did they tell you what happened to the guy that gave it?" And it's just like this great little, it's a lettering trick. It's like a tiny little bubble, and it's like ... and then it's a bigger bubble, but it's still like so isolated of just the word no. Oh, it's so...
And I love that they don't show Cap actually being told that. It's just like, it's something that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's more effective that way, I think.
And Wade's done that before with lettering. Like or not lettering, but word balloons. Like there's a scene in his Daredevil run with a character closing a door, and it cuts off the word balloons because it's cutting off the sound from Matt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait.
Oh, and Red froze a little bit there. It's cool.
Frozen in time.
Oh.
Are you just gonna make puns this entire time, dude?
Yes.
That is my reason for being here.
Yes, he was
It's
frozen
not that he
today.
runs the show, it's that he wants to make Cap puns.
I mean, can you really blame him? No, so yeah, I really do like a lot of what Wade does with this story, and it's interesting because Wade is currently writing the Cap book right now, and he's doing kind of a similar thing. I'm pretty sure the current arc is called Out of Time, and so it's funny that it's almost identical concept of bringing Captain America to the future again, further in time, and he's just having to deal with trying to reconstruct a lot of the same issues. So this is clearly an idea that Mark Waid likes to play around with.
And it's funny because when I saw the title for that arc at the end of the issue before it, because I don't really read solicitations, for a second I was like, oh my god, are they just going to reprint that many? That would be hilarious. It'd be great, but it'd be hilarious.
Please forgive us. Hear something you like. Hopefully. People.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how that story's going to end with, given the arc that Cap goes through in this book. I'm just kind of curious as to how is Cap gonna go back to his own time and try and stop it, or is he going to stay in the future and try to make America great? make America semi-functional again.
I want a hat that says that. Make America semi-functional again.
America again.
Yeah.
Can I also just say, so while I'm on mute, just if I have something to say, how about I just hold up my copy and that be kind of like, teacher, I have a question.
No, that's fine, and feel free to interject whenever you want, man.
Or you
Oh no, it's just because I'm on mute and I don't want to be. It's a little awkward.
No, I totally get you. It's fine. So the concept of the character arc and can this be a lasting thing for Cap, I think is interesting, and the idea of him trying to fix the country by living up to the legend that was made of him. is a really interesting idea. But I kind of want to hear more about what you guys think. So why doesn't Red take us in some direction on this?
I guess it's funny. I haven't read much Captain America until about maybe 4 months ago when I got Winter Soldier and Red Menace, as well as the Patriot miniseries, but that's not really about Steve. But with Winter Soldier, it's a really interesting juxtaposition between the two books, because Cap coming out of the ice for the first time, he is kind of still pining for the past, and having read Winter Soldier recently, it's kind of cool to see a Cap who's been through 10 years of the present, to the point that he doesn't miss the past, but he's also disillusioned with the present as well, and kind of almost borderline like Batman at the beginning of that book with how closed off he is. And it's interesting to see that how Steve Rogers has that kind of he's always a soldier, and that point at the end of this of, like, I think it's the final line even, which is, and I'll always be a soldier, is kind of the defining thing with Captain America. And here it's optimistic, but you can always take that in the depressing angle with that character as well. That's kind of what makes him such an interesting character. He's always timeless. You can always unfreeze him later. You can always have him keep going because it's the same trial kind of thing.
Yeah, that is a really interesting notion about him, and I remember when Steve and I did the Geeky Gentleman character discussion on Steve Rogers a couple months back. We did talk about like how far removed Cap is getting from all these things, because we mentioned this before we started recording, but there's a backup in this that reprints the original Jack Kirby Stan Lee story of Cap being unfrozen from the ice, and like in that story, he's like, I missed 20 years. This is so crazy. But now we're like, he missed 70 years and things are so different. And as it keeps getting further and further along, he's going to be missing more and more time as we update the story. And that's kind of crazy. And I really like the way Wade handles a lot of this stuff. That idea of just how shocking any version of the future would be to Cap, because he just lets it speak for itself with a lot of like silent panels, and it's just inherent weirdness and creepiness and strangeness, and like I think it really gets at the best point when it gets to, I think, the end of the first issue where they find the alien, and he just starts laughing almost maniacally, or it's the end of the third issue where he just starts like almost laughing maniacally because he just can't believe how ludicrous things are, that there's a man from Mars that's behind all this.
And I also think it's really interesting that right after that is the moment where he sort of acknowledges, like, okay, this is real, when Rick Jones shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's always been a thing, even in the classic 60s comics, since he always thought Rick Jones looked similar to Bucky, so I guess he found him as a way to help him modernize to keep into the past.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit during that, Nathan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You wanna repeat just the last sentence again?
I meant to say that Rick Jones is basically helped get Cap to be in the present instead of being stuck in the past.
Yeah. That is really interesting. It's cool to see all the relationships that build between these. What's up, Robert?
Rick Jones is a character I have never actually liked, but this is the closest I've ever gotten to actually liking him. I feel like just reading this, Rick Jones makes more sense as a Captain America side character than he is to, like, he's kind of the Jimmy Olsen of the whole Marvel universe, but like he would have been a perfect kind of just Cap sidekick, buddy, friend, and like even in Spencer's run, he's actually pretty likable in that, all things considered, for that run. But I've never liked Rick Jones, and this, I really just enjoyed this sort of thing where he's seeing Rick as Bucky, which is of course foreshadowing Rick actually becoming temporarily the new Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which was a thing that apparently happened that I had to Google.
I didn't know that either. It's okay.
Yeah, that was what, like 70s?
I was aware of, I was semi aware of it, but I needed to Google it to check if it wasn't just my brain playing tricks on me. But
There was an issue of classic Avengers where he dressed up as Bucky for a second. Cap got angry at him to tell him to take it off because it filled him with bad memories.
Cap telling a teenage boy to take it off.
Jesus.
Out of context comics.
Oh wow. That's beneath you.
I'm sorry.
You can just mute yourself for the rest of this discussion. That'd be okay.
That's
Dr.
yeah.
Hunt,
You're in the
I'm
penalty
here
box
to make
now.
the awful jokes, not you. Oh man. Yeah, the like weird this does bring something that I want to talk about because I do think it's a little odd where I think Wade tries to keep some elements that I think are just really, really strange to try to keep, and I mixed on some of them. So like the Rick Jones being, reincarnated Bucky in Cap's eyes or whatever. That's like I'll give it a pass because it just kind of shows that Cap's not quite in his right mind in the first two issues. There's some stuff though where I'm like, really, you dropped this plot element, but you're gonna keep this one, and
a Medusa camera.
Yeah, like that gets dropped. Fine, whatever. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But like, why in the hell are some of these choices made? Like some of the art in here, I don't know if this guy's a bad artist because like some of it looks really good, but then there's like really strange choices.
Yeah, the art
like
looks
Iron
really
Man's
good.
armor. It looks really weird to bring that into a modern art style.
It's such a weird, like it's not even his original costume. It's like a weird combination of what at the time was the modern suit and the original suit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And like here's a good panel of it. You get a good shot of him, and he's like got these freaking devil horns. And if you go to the Jack Kirby,
I think those look kind of cool, actually.
That was how his mask looked around that time.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's like right there in the Jack Kirby issue, and that's just how it was drawn at the time. But I'm like, why is the alien look different and modernized in a way that's actually aesthetically pleasing and fits, but Iron Man's not?
Well, the thing is, though, again, Marvel is a consistent continuity. Avengers number 4 is technically still canon, as are all the Iron Man armors. Like, if this is supposed to still fit, like, this is kind of a pseudo reboot, because Marvel has a shifting timeline. But since this was supposed to be canon, and it's by wave, so it was a big event kind of thing, I get why they'd want to keep that for the sake of the Iron Man writers, because they have because I don't want to go into the Iron Man fanboy armor rants because I know people hate it when we do that stuff, but that is a thing that Iron Man writers stick to is every armor counts, even the really shitty ones. We count that lineage, every single one of them.
And even just talking about the greater context of the Marvel universe, the thing is, Marvel's constantly making little tweaks to their timeline, like in every issue of every comic, but everything in Marvel has still always been technically happening for about 20 years, which makes no sense when you think about it, but hey, it's comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, see, it leads me to this question, which is like, I know Iron Man originally had like the Vietnam origin, but it got updated. Did the suit still look like the Mach 1? Have the suits been consistent in the updates?
We are, again, if you read through every fucking Iron Man run to this day, will have a scene where he has to suit up in the original armor. For no reason. I mean, Fraction does a cool thing where he's losing his memory, or he's losing brain function, so he has to go back each one because he's less intelligent, so he has to use the older ones. But for one reason or another, we always contrive a way to put him in that original suit.
Okay, Robert, what's up?
Just getting on the topic of the artist, I think the artist is actually pretty decent overall, but he does have really weird facial expressions. So you'll have this really cool,
this is
dynamic
really weird one.
action right there, and then followed up with just the goofiest facial expression
that-
on the very next
I like
page.
Shinju as well. It looks
I feel like that should be a really popular reaction image.
Yeah, there's a lot of that where it's just like, ah! These are just like, I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just not their strong suit. But yeah, I definitely noticed that the first time I was reading it, where I'm just like, man, that is awkward to look at. Like the anatomy is really good. I really liked the coloring. I'm not sure if it was what's his name, Melina Trump doing the Mike Manola. I don't know who it is.
Oh wait, so pencils and
George
breakdowns were
Molina.
Molina. Colorist was Frank Diarmata.
See, I feel like Frank did the heavy lifting on this book. I feel like this book would not be half as good as like art on this would not be half as good without Frank DiMarta.
This is one of those books that proves just how freaking important colorists are.
Yeah, and like, you know, while we're talking about the art, there's some really interesting things done with the coloring. Like, obviously, when Cap's running around in the modern day for the first time and he's very confused, like some stuff is black and white. Like when he's seeing Rick Jones as Bucky, Bucky's in black and white. But what I really, really like is when Cap gets sent back in time by Kang, and I do want to make sure we talk about Kang. I like that, like, Cap, there's images where Cap is the only one in color, and everyone else is either really, really toned down or just straight black and white. And I think that is a really, really cool trick.
Yeah, that's
And
nice.
I think the idea there is supposed to be the black and white is not like Cap seeing things weirdly. It's that it's just helping you more understand the fact that he feels separate from everything.
No, I agree. And it like this image in particular, again, it's invoking that imagery of Cap being a man out of time. And I really, really like that. What's up, Robert?
And it's like, does anyone ever get like a grass is always greener sort of vibe with Caps, where like, you know, the title is Man Out of Time, but like when you stop and you think about it, Cap, even when he was still in the 40s, Cap was still kind of a man of out of time. Like we all know people where we'd be like, you were born a generation too early or too late.
Mm-hmm.
And like Steve Rogers does feel like a person who was born like a generation too late, but then he's frozen in the ice cube and then he wakes up 2 generations later.
Mm-hmm.
And so he never, it feels like he never got to like live through the period where he probably would have been the most at home.
Yeah, I mean, I could see definitely Captain America as a flower child, you know?
Yeah, like Cap would be like suited to the 60s, which of course, when he originally was fought out of the ice is what he was, but we have to keep on pushing that, obviously.
Yeah, and it's getting stranger and more distanced.
It's interesting going to the point of him waking up, 80 years later, and how, like, at first it's just been 20 years. But what's kind of interesting about that stuff and how we've evolved the character is when he first wakes up, since it's only been 20 years, a lot of that early Lee and Kirby stuff, well, not the early Lee and Kirby, but the other early Lee and Kirby stuff is less about the difference between the two time periods and more about him kind of trying to cope with the fact that everyone he knew is still alive in the 60s comics. Like Nick Fury, he fought with, he's still alive without the serum or anything. He's just around, and there's a whole thing of him resenting Cap because he had to go through Vietnam and go through that stuff, and Cap comes out pure and everyone else is tainted. And you kind of get that still with the Colonel, I think it was, here. But it's interesting how that character, the point of how he's out of time, has shifted in the decades since.
And let me ask you guys this. The way the Colonel is used in this, do you think that might have inspired what they did with Peggy in Winter Soldier?
Ooh.
I mean, we usually do that, right?
Kind of.
Yeah, I can see that.
Did anyone think? First off, it with the Colonel's naming. Actually, I've got this thing where I start paying attention to naming a lot. Naming him Jacob Simon, which is of course an homage to Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, I thought was a nice touch. But did anyone feel like it was a missed opportunity not to have Nick Fury in this?
Well, they do reference
kind of.
I know, but to actually have him in and actually like maybe have him be the sort of the voice of dissent to Tony Stark's sort of voice of optimism.
I feel like if they did that, they would have had to cut out the president, and I think that makes this book vastly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think, honestly, Cap meeting Fury again works best when he has adapted to the modern times and kind of accepted them, and then gets that challenged by Fury's cynicism and being down and having to deal with someone who also, didn't age, but had to live through not aging. So I kind of think it is a decent choice, or at least they made the best of it.
I wanted to bring something
that makes
about
sense.
I wanted to bring something up about the coloring. I couldn't tell exactly what the eye color was, but is Cap supposed to be Aryan?
I don't think so.
Like, I thought he had
I
like
think
blonde
so.
hair, blue eyes.
I thought he was like I always thought he was either Jewish or Irish descent.
Yeah, he's Irish, I think.
Yeah, he's partially Irish, I think.
I mean, you get that. I think he is supposed to have blue eyes, though, because I mean, at the very least, the MCU, because there's that line Zeno has about like the little imperfections, with
Like
having
second
brain.
generation Irish, I think.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to have
Wasn't his
blonde hair,
father
blue
an Irish?
eyes.
I thought it was the first generation, because I thought his father was actually from Ireland, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty
his
sure he's
father
supposed to have blonde hair, blue eyes. Like there are some panels really in the beginning where you get some close-ups that say he's supposed to have blonde hair, blue eyes.
And the reason I bring that up is because I think it is important for Cap to be privileged somewhat, because we have that moment when he goes back to from where he's from, and he realizes that his good old days weren't all that good for everyone else. Like, he was fine because he's the straight white guy who's working for the army, but not everyone else was as well off as he was.
Well,
And I think
that's kind of the thing. I'm sorry, am I interrupting you?
No, I was just going to say, I think that kind of adds to him becoming disillusioned with the time period and everything.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with Cap is I've always sort of, because of this book, I don't see him as someone who thinks of them as the good old days. He thinks of it as a time when things felt good, but they weren't necessarily good for everyone. And there's not just that issue, but there's all sorts of little moments, like when he's in the hospital in, I think, the second issue, and he sees that black woman doctor, and he just goes, "Oh, that's nice," and she thinks he's being condescending, but he's genuinely like, "Oh, that's really cool that black women can do that now."
There's a webcomic I always go to where it's Cap like being kind of stuck in like 40s white guy mode, where he's like, listen, I'm not saying Black Panther shouldn't be an Avenger. I just think he should have his own Avengers and his own bathroom. And it's like, that's what you would get if you thought a guy from the 40s, right? Like the most progressive. Yeah, like that's the. Oh my God, Capsplaining, yes. That's exactly what it is. And it's funny how Cap has so many interactions with black people in this book, and he just doesn't get it. Like he's aware of the struggle, but he doesn't get
and
that.
I
like
love that,
he
comes
comes off as
I love that.
because he hasn't met Sam Wilson yet. Because again, because the Grunwald stuff is still in canon with this, and I mean, that was kind of the cool thing. Go back to what Vac was saying, like, Steve doesn't really miss the 40 entirely. Like, he gets to a point where he realizes, oh, that was shit, him, and that's what's so cool about him partners with Falcon. And I like the fact that he doesn't really go through that arc yet here, because he doesn't meet him yet. He has to confront that.
But he's made very aware that his viewpoint is dated. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, it's not even just with black people. It's also with women and stuff like that. Like that scene where he gets shot and he's talking to the doctors, and he calls the female doctor nurse, and she's just like, "I'm a doctor," and he's like, "Are you really?" And it's not like a condescending thing. It's more of a, he's legitimately actually really surprised and happy, but he's just he's not used to that thing, and it just kind of shows. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
No, I get what you're saying. And then there's a lot of stuff in this that handles that. Like, I really like this panel right here where he's talking to this guy. This is when he's in the past. He's talking to this guy he served with. And the guy's like, things are so great here. And Cap just looks over and sees this waitress getting her ass smacked by a random dude. And it's just, yeah, that shit just fucking happened constantly. And so there's definitely, like, Tony's not completely right, but he's also not completely wrong.
Another detail I love is when that first panel of him being back in the 40s is the celebration in New York where the famous kiss happened, where that kiss wasn't consensual. And you can actually see it about to happen right behind him.
Well, actually in front of him.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, that's another thing that kind of leads to something I want to talk about. I really like the choice to make Kang the big bad guy of this. I thought that was a really inspired and brilliant idea.
Yeah. To have Kang as Earth's Mightiest Heroes did that with their two-parter. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a good choice, I think.
Yeah, but I'm talking specifically to make Kang this guy who time travels and put him as the main villain in this story with Cap, where Cap is obsessed with his time being up. Like, there's this whole idea of other people can take the mantle of Captain America. I now have proof of that. So my time's gone. All I want is to go back to my own time and live it out. And Kang's here, and Kang doesn't want to go to his own time. Kang wants to go conquer time itself. And so I think that is a really, really interesting. There's only one really good scene with Kang, but it is a really good scene.
And that's what I'm talking about with the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, because that two-parter is what you're talking about, but also throwing in Tony, and so you have the futurist mindset, and they're having to balance that.
It's a nice parallel.
Yeah. And Kang's almost always awesome when he's used.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robert.
I legitimately just forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, the like when he's talking about going back, when he's talking about, oh, I don't need to be Captain America anymore. There's going to be other Captain Americas to take that place. I wonder if Tony thought to like fill him in on like some of the other Captain Americas, how like one of them went crazy and stuff like that.
You mean No Man?
Started. Yeah. What was he?
I get the feeling that he was about to, but that's when Cap left.
Yeah, but like
2 out of 3 were good. That's decent odds.
But like he was also talking about, I would go back, I'll save Bucky, and we'll be hobos for all we care and stuff like that. He's just,
and I'm like,
he's really grasping at straws at like how.
#Stucky for life.
I'm like, is he even thinking about what Bucky would want? Because Bucky does not seem like the kind of guy who would be cool with being a hobo for the rest of his life just because he gets the chance to be alive.
Because it brings me back to this. Actually, Red Menace. Because there's the whole thing with the girl he fell in love with in the past. And like one of the first thing he does once he gets his mind back is like find out about what happened with her and her having to live her life without that. And so it's like I like the fact that Steve's kind of not really realizing that right now, but at the same time he does say in Red Menace, which had come out previously before this, that like he always knew where Bucky would go, but at the same time he was obviously just thinking about himself in that moment, trying to figure out whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, if we could talk to like Winter Soldier Bucky, I'm pretty sure he would rather be a 1940s hobo than brainwashed and experimented on by the Russians for 70 odd years.
That is true.
Fair. While we're talking about Bucky, I want to talk about the scene with Thor, because I did not expect to get a really good Thor Cap scene in this.
Oh, that scene was
that's one of the book-making scenes.
I know,
That's
it's
maybe
surprising
like
as hell, but it was so good. Just Thor gives this, like, I love that
he just verbally bitch slaps Cap. It's amazing.
Yeah, he just basically
Thor
tells you
puts
about
the
how
hammer
it's amazing.
down.
You want the hammer down? All right.
Yeah. No, that's a really good one. I love the setting of it. It's so comic book melodrama. It's in a graveyard while it's raining, and Thor's there. He's just like, the halls of Valhalla. You would take that away from your friend, and I just love how Thor is like so disgusted by him. It's like, I comprehend fully what thou hast to say, and that is why I'm so bitterly disappointed in thee. Like, damn.
And that's Thor's job, is to just verbally bitch slap everyone. Remember that from the JMS run where
is bull.
I wish we got
Hey,
like, I love the Avengers movies. I love the dynamic that all the actors have. You can very clearly tell that these people are really good friends. But I really wish we got moments like that with Cap and Thor in the movies, because more than anyone on the team, they are warriors. They are soldiers. And you don't really get that in the films.
Yeah, I mean, Thor has lost dozens of friends or people he's known over the years, so it's a nice connection they could have.
Well, he just lost everyone he knows in Ragnarok.
Yeah, we
lose to Ragnarok.
I just kind of want there to be like, I wanted the post-credit scene in Ragnarok to just be him going around the ship being all like, "Where's Volstagg?" and
that would be terrible.
Did they make it out? Are they okay?
Oh, that is so harsh. Someone's gonna have to tell Thor that.
Look, we played everything in that movie for comedy. You could have got away with that.
Oh,
that is true.
You just know that.
I don't remember if their deaths were played for comedy, though. I think that was one of the harsher moments in the film.
That was one of the hell is a scary bitch moments. Yeah.
We all know that in like a few movies, he's just gonna do the thing from the JMS run where they're reincarnated as random hobos.
Yeah, that.
Which I do love. Just the fact that Heimdall's a crazy blind man.
So, getting back to the book, we have been dancing around it quite a bit. I want to hear what other people have to think about how the president is handled in this book, because that's something that's always very polarizing as far as I know.
For me, I really like that they don't quite show him in the face, and they keep like the skin tone like a muted kind of brown, so it looks like it could just be, you know, the way the light's hitting him and stuff. So like he's kept very vague, and I think the reason that works really well is if you make it Obama, then this book loses a little bit of
It's automatically dated.
Yeah, it's automatically dated. It loses a little bit of relevance as it goes. But at the same time, I kind of would prefer it to be Obama, because this scene completely falls apart if you imagine it's Trump. The scene does not work at all if you imagine it's Trump talking to him.
Oh no!
I don't think it works for Bush either.
I did try to actually read it and have the voice in my head be Obama this time around, because I've always just read it as whatever voice, but reading it as Obama, the dialogue does actually really work and sound like things he would say.
Yeah, I agree, and it sounds like something a statesman would say. But like even beyond just like Trump's inability to properly verbalize himself, the way in which Cap has so much respect for the office, like he stands at attention the whole time, and that's just. I cannot imagine Cap reacting that way to Trump in the office. You know, that's just like completely out of character.
Well, he wouldn't even know who Trump is, though.
Maybe, but at the same time, like,
he'd be pissed.
At the
He'd
same
be
time,
like, "Wait, Hawaii's a state?"
Fair.
Oh my God! Can I say this? I forgot to mention? So baseball plays a massive role in this, and I love that because I have always wanted a scene with Captain America being royally fucking pissed about the Dodgers moving to LA. Because as a baseball fan, I'm always like, no, he would fucking punch a wall the moment he finds out that happened. I really wish the final scene of First Avenger was like him like talking to Fury and like looking at one of the jumbotrons, like he's like, oh, I had a date, looking at the jumbotron saying, Los Angeles Dodgers, and you just pan out and see him fall to his knees and scream.
No!
That'd be his reaction.
Why didn't one of the YouTube parody channels do that? That'd been hilarious.
Because he would totally react that way.
That is a very, very specific joke, and I love it.
And I love the fact that they bring up the DH, and he's like, what the fuck's a DH? Like, yes. Making fun of that.
Just on the president thing, you were mentioning how they kind of gave him sort of a lighter sort of skin color kind of thing and everything. They kept his face in shadows. In 2020, this could totally work if The Rock gets elected. Like, you could just pretend he stopped working out when he was elected, and he just kind of he shrunk down a little bit. And it's totally The Rock, and then there's a sequel series where him and Cap go out together and they punch Nazis.
They drive cars and drive
I'd buy
fast.
that for $1.
Another thing to mention
I
about that real quick is if you actually look closely at the side of his head in a couple shots, he's actually got hair that's a little longer than Obama's. So it could also be like an older president if you want to imagine it that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. I like that it's kept very, very vague, and so it makes it a little more timeless. That it's a trick that you see in a lot of things. Like, a lot of movies will just, they'll be like, oh no, someone called the president, and you'll just see like a hand on a phone. And usually
the BBS thing.
A shadow or archive footage.
Yeah, usually it's like a white hand thing, and it's like, okay, it's a little bullshit, but it's vague enough that literally anyone could be on the other side of that. So you can more easily imagine multiple presidents in that space. And I just think that it makes it a little more out of time.
So, I have a.
Well, if you did that nowadays with just the hand on the phone thing, it would just be a tiny little orange Oompa Loompa hand. I've got tons of these people.
Whenever that happens in a movie, I like to think that it's literally. Whenever that happens in a movie, I like to think the president is literally just a disembodied hand that just acts on its own.
Thing ran for president and won.
Thing Adams is president in that movie's universe.
I voted for Thing Adams because, you just get a handshake and you really get the measure of a man by a handshake. He's got a nice firm grasp,
No, just imagine in the Marvel universe if the election was Thing Adams for the Republican Party and Ben Grimm for the Democratic Party. And no one would know who to vote for.
And then Thing 1 as Libertarian, Thing 2 as Green Party. It makes sense.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And then the Thing from another world is independent.
And John Carpenter's The Thing is
and people will be asking for the Thing from the other world's birth certificate.
I don't think you can use from here.
And then we get Man-Thing in there as well. And then Swamp-Thing, but he's from a different universe. And then there's this whole debate of if Americans from different universes could run for president in this universe.
That's such a good idea, though. That's a
This is like a Futurama episode. In fact, I think this was a Futurama episode.
Wasn't there an episode about that?
Did anyone read Vote Loki?
Wait, there was with Nixon.
Yeah, that book was great.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. I loved. Vote Loki was amazing. Like, especially the way they handled the whole birth certificate thing with the whole reincarnation. But like, my whole deal was you need to be 35 to run for president, and technically speaking, that version of Loki is like 15, like artificially aged up or whatever. I don't know what the deal is. So I was like,
they always kept dropping that reference that he looks like that one actor.
Also, I'm pretty sure like you can't run for office with a felony record. I'm pretty sure Loki would have a felony record.
He's got
genocide.
He's got like a cabinet full.
His genocide a felony? Asking for a friend.
I have a rant that I want to do really quick.
Go ahead.
So, The general guy says no more steel work and no more steel work. Pittsburgh's collapsed. Okay, you want to play? So, Buccos fan here, and in Pittsburgh. Okay, that can't fit. I'm from Pittsburgh. Here's what I have to say. Steelwork fucked us up. We stopped having steel factories like 40 years before I was born. I still got asthma. My dad got cancer. All my families had asthma at one point or another. Fuck the steel factories. They ruined us. We have a massive cancer population. In fact, right now, because we've stopped doing that, we've become one of the leaders in cancer research in the world. We also have one of the headquarters for Google. We have the headquarters for Uber. We have self-driving cars. We're a freaking masterclass in tech advancement and like new age jobs. So tell me how Pittsburgh's collapsed when we're massively important in the job market right now. Enlighten me.
But they don't have the job I want. They don't have my job.
No, okay. Let's actually talk about this. This is actually a really interesting political issue that I find really, really fascinating, because people have the image of the steelworker as like the working man and stuff, and they don't want to admit to the problems that, that certain jobs like
because of that as well. Because he got the fucking fibers in his throat.
Yeah,
people because of that. Again, fuck that shit.
No, but like it's interesting that people have this outside looking in view of steelworking. It's a nice big job, when really you're selling your body. You're doing permanent damage to your body with like steelworking, mining, stuff like that. It's doing permanent damage to your body, your long-term health. And so maybe it's not a bad thing that these industries are leaving. Yeah, it doesn't allow you the whole pension job and all that stuff. And that is a problem in its own right. But the massive health costs on people is not something to be ignored. But it's this interesting thing of like, this politician's, you can pick Trump, you can pick any politician. This politician's promised to bring our jobs back. And it's like, the honest answer is, as harsh as this might sound, you probably don't want certain jobs back.
Yeah. Again, if steelworking wasn't
busy right now.
If we didn't have
busy right now.
And if I can go outside of the politics of this for a second and just talk about it in the context of this book, I actually really like that sort of idea is there hanging around him saying that, because you have to remember, this guy's supposed to be your stereotypical old man. I mean, the thing he says right after that is, everything's computers now. How many times have you heard that line from an old man character in the last 10 years? The answer is every old man character.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it works really well, especially when it's a friend of Cap talking to Cap.
Mm-hmm. Nathan, what were you trying to say? You were trying to cut in for a minute.
Oh, my uncle got internet for the first time, and it's the most confusing thing for him. So I can relate to this.
I will admit he does say Detroit's a ghost town soon enough. He's not wrong there.
See, and now like someone from Detroit's gonna pop in and be like, "Fuck you, Red! I don't want to talk about this."
Literal like vigilante groups that shit in your city. You don't give a shit.
We should just insult every state in the United States and have like 50 people come in.
We don't have to insult Detroit. It's Detroit. They do it for us. I'm sorry, but your city is really bad.
You know, insult Iowa's core.
I lived outside Detroit with my dad for a little bit. Detroit's actually on the upswing, believe it or not. It's popular rhetoric. Anyway.
But yeah, what were you talking about?
Robert, what do you got, man?
Yeah, man. Speaking like just in regards to jobs and stuff going, it's not like everything's the internet now. I don't think that's the problem. Speaking as someone who is no longer allowed in his local superstore, it's self-checkouts. They're annoying. I had a full-on swearing match with one of those things once.
Wow, you need to work through some stuff, man.
That's a joke. I'm not banned from the store, but I did nearly have a short verbal abuse at a machine because of it. So like maybe if you did something with Cap with it's not it's the internet. It's like, no, it's automation and stuff like that. Like that could be something interesting and stuff like. Where
I mean, to that point, I really liked that Cap just calls Iron Man the robot in his journal for the first couple entries. That's really interesting, and it kind of fits because before I knew who Iron Man was, I straight thought it was a robot. Well,
that's how young were you when you thought that?
I don't know, like 13.
Oh wow, okay. See, I was about to say as an anecdote, until I was about 10, I thought Batman was a vampire.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
I watched the first Iron Man with my then girlfriend, and in the theater, she leans over to me and says, "So when does he build the robot?" And I had to like.
What are you talking about? He's got a robot right there. He's holding the fire extinguisher.
It's like he's Iron Man, and he's like, "Oh, does he become a cyborg? Is this like RoboCop?"
Yes, this is exactly like RoboCop.
Imagine.
Speaking of Detroit, RoboCop.
Segue. Let's talk about Tony.
Sure.
I really like the fact that we grew up in the Smithsonian and stuff like that. Like, that's just a Tony Stark thing. And one of the things that's cool about this is it's set like a decade prior to current Marvel at the time. And so you get a Tony Stark who's still an alcoholic and he's kind of a futurist.
He's still got a secret identity.
Yeah, and he's, at this point kind of still more of a industrialist than a futurist, really. Like, he has those leanings, but that's not where his effort's going. And it's really interesting to see that, because Tony as a person would radically change over time, just like Steve. The events, now having went through Civil War and all this shit, it's kind of cool to see how much those two characters get to interact and butt heads, but also see what they have in common and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. I like that Cap's kind of gotten the measure of Tony right from the very beginning. Like, one of his journal entries at I think the beginning of issue 3 says, "I agree because he seems like the type who gets annoying if he doesn't get his way, or seems used to getting his way."
He's used to getting his way, is what he says.
Okay, yeah, I really like that. That's just he's kind of got Tony down to a T. Haha. Right off the bat on meeting him. I think that's really interesting.
Not because he's clearly used to getting his way. I complied because now that I have come to accept that I'm not trapped in a dream, I have questions I need answered.
Yep. I think that's just really good stuff. That's really good character dynamic. And it's a way that this almost feels like it's like, I like the title Captain America Man at a Time. This almost feels like the proper name for it is Captain America and the Avengers Man at a Time. Because this does feel like an Avengers story as much as a Captain America story.
So
the only ones who don't get much are Wasp and Giant Man.
Mm-hmm.
Is Reed Richards in it more than Wasp? Because I feel like he is.
Not that much, really.
I think he's in like 2 pages. Is Reed Richards?
But doesn't he get like more dialogue than she does?
I think so. Yeah, but that's just because,
definitely.
That's just because Reed likes the sound of his own voice.
That's true.
I don't know. That seems like
Reed
a stretch to
Richards.
me.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something. It does seem like Wasp and Ant-Man, or Giant Man rather, are the ones that don't get a lot of time here, but who the fuck cares? I just don't have the energy.
Okay, I like those characters, but I admit in this story they don't have a lot of relevance. Like this, especially this era of those characters, all they're gonna do is just kind of say like semi-nice things to Cap to try and comfort him.
Yeah, like down the line, don't they date? But like that's way farther away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just about
go ahead.
With Hank and Janet, like, let's just think about it this way: those two were left out of their own movie. Like, when you think about it, it's like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Well, we're not going to do Janet and Hank. We're just going to get these other guys.
Hank Pym's in the movie, but
hey, don't diss Scott Lang. I will come to blows.
To blows, he says. Okay, well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about with this book, because I do think it's really, really good. Oh,
We haven't
has
talked
something.
about my favorite moment in the book, which is the moment where he fully acknowledges to Rick Jones, okay, I can't deny this is a dream anymore, not on any single level, which is when he Googles the war and he sees that FDR, I think it was FDR, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
FDR died before the war ended. And he gives like this mini speech about how much he revered FDR. And he says, he died weeks before it ended. I could never have dreamed something that cruel. That is such a quintessentially Cap moment to me.
I don't
Yeah,
want to sound
definitely.
awful, but I would really love if there was an Asian character there and was just like,
No, definitely, and like certainly this is the thing to talk about when talking about the past is. Give me just one sec, Robert. This thing to talk about when talking about the past is like, yeah, FDR was a good leader for the time, but he still clearly did things that were just objectively wrong. Read Japanese internment camps. But there is an undeniable fact that you listen to FDR speeches, they do feel very inspiring. Yeah. FDR did feel like a true leader. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself is a really powerful line to try to galvanize a people. And so I do think that it's really interesting that Cap has a lot of reverence for the man. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, just mention like the faults of FDR. Wouldn't it be like how interesting would it be if during the scene where General Simon is telling him just sort of ripping away the veil, how interesting would it have been if he touched on the fact that, hey, FDR let Pearl Harbor happen?
Would he know about that, though?
Theories,
I feel like he's the kind of guy who wouldn't care about that after the fact.
We would end up just getting the scene from Dark Knight Returns with Gordon talking about that whole thing.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid to get my hands down in the mud.
No, I'm talking about the scene where he talks about FDR and Pearl Harbor in the comic Dark Knight Returns.
I thought you said Rises. Sorry.
No, he has a whole speech in the comic about FDR and the whole "he was too big" thing, which I shouldn't have said that out of context.
Okay.
I just want somebody to jump up and yell for the corrupt or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Yeah, I do agree. I like that speech, or I like that scene too, Vac, and it is interesting to see that again. It's part of Cap having too much, or Cap really having this like stuck in the past nostalgia, rose-colored glasses thing. And I think that's part of what he confronts when he's sent back in time by Kang. So there's a lot really, really brilliant about this that I quite liked.
One thing I kind of like. Sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
I think my favorite moments is when he goes back to his old time and he goes to that ball game and there's that father and son sitting with him at the ball game, and the kid's talking about how
we haven't talked about that.
How the kid wants to join a team, and his father's like, and Cap's like, yeah, you should do that, but the father's like, this is a white man's thing, and
then he starts going, well, there will come a time.
Yeah, he starts to say that, but then he's like, oh, wait, I can't, screw with the timeline. I don't want to say certain things.
The guy cuts him off, and it's like, thinking he's making fun of them.
Yeah, and I really like that. Because, it not only shows, how, the kind of whiplash it must have to go from this time to another, but also that kind of realization, oh, yeah, things kind of sucked in this time in a lot of regards.
Yeah, definitely. I really, really like that scene. And it gets to kind of the underlying idea, which is that Cap thinks, okay, I can just go back in time and live through my time. But Captain America, Steve Rogers, is the kind of man who cannot sit on the sidelines of history. So they tell him, even if you were to go back and try not to interfere with history, there could be just on accident. And that's kind of the moment where he realizes, I can't just sit back and get to see these injustices carried out for another 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. I need to be there. I need to be involved if I'm going to be in this time, and I need to help move the country forward. So it's really great that you are not suited to go back to that time anymore. We need you here now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's carried through in the metaphor.
Now.
Yeah, I think that's carried through really well in the metaphor connected to Kang and leaving the Avengers in the middle of a fight. Go ahead, Robert.
Just getting what you said, couldn't you just see Cap, if he did go back and then 20 years down the line after being in the past, couldn't you just see Cap just sort of, I don't know, maybe thinking, oh, I'll go see that wonderful speech that moved me. I'll get to go see it in person. And then, couldn't you actually see, Martin Luther King wasn't actually shot at the speech, but couldn't you sort of see him instinctively trying to prevent the assassination of Martin Luther King or JFK or something?
I don't think so, because the way Martin Luther King died is he was shot, and then he was brought to a hospital, and then the FBI suffocated him in his bed.
I didn't know that.
That's literally what happened.
I didn't either. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I thought he was just shot. Wow.
I'd always thought he was just shot. Yeah. I want to look into that.
Let's check as soon as we're done.
Let's wait for Ian.
I thought you were joking.
No, that's real. Look it up.
Are you?
I'm gonna have to look into that one.
That's we'll hold judgment until Ian specifies that because he's the history guy.
Yeah,
this will be a follow-up segment in the next comic book club.
That with the Black Panther guy who got murdered in his bed.
Huey Newton?
No. I think it was. I mean, I'm not the greatest source of information for history, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. But that's
that's what you heard. Now you sound like Fox News. Don't do that, dude. This is why people make fun of. Don't give them any power to sway that against us. But speaking of modern issues, I like the fact that we get at least two things dealing with immigration in this.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the woman who's working to get her family over, and then him stopping the immigrants, which I really wish we got that full scene because I want to see what he would have done next.
I think that's the best part is you get the sense of what do I do now in this situation.
I kind of assume that would be one of those moments where Cap just has to stand back and go, "What the hell?" and just watches it unfold.
The weird thing is they say human trafficking over that.
I mean, that's what I guess is.
Coyotes, and shit like that. So yeah.
I do
kind of want to.
That is what it actually. I know for a fact because I have family who have worked in that department of the government. That is what it is legally referred to as.
Yeah,
I would want to see Cap talk about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, that would be a whole nother 5-issue miniseries, but dealing specifically. But we did it with Sam Wilson, but I don't know if we've done that with Steve.
The thing that was confused me when they talked about human trafficking was it was paired alongside the general telling him, "Oh, look, we have crimes now that you've never heard of," and I'm pretty sure human trafficking was a thing in the 40s and 20s.
I mean, it's always been.
Was it a publicized thing back then?
It's always been a thing. Yeah. It's just the way in which it works now is it's on such a bigger scale than anyone could possibly have imagined.
Okay.
The fact that there are parents in South American countries sending their children off with strangers who are promising to take care of them, and then they just get treated like crap is a really scary thing.
It's just I watched this while I was watching. I read this while I had TV on the background, and there was the episode of Archer Dreamland where there was the human trafficking thing. And then I was like, wait a second.
I was going to say, I had just watched a 60 Minutes story on human trafficking before I went and read this again.
Mm-hmm. All right. Does anyone have any other scenes they want to talk about with this then?
I also like when he first arrives and he sees that woman getting mugged and he saves her and he tries to help her, but then she just shoots him. I thought that was a really cool moment, not just because it shows you this is a much more, maybe not cynical, but definitely a much more people aren't maybe as trusting as Captain America now as they would have been back then. And also I just like the fact that Captain America just gets shot and it really hurts him. Mm-hmm. I don't know if, because he has the super soldier serum obviously, but I don't think they touch on the super soldier serum in this, do they?
They mention it a couple times, but it's not a big element. And I also want
Yeah,
to say,
Doctor talks about it very
I
briefly.
really
with the,
like that.
bullet.
Oh, sorry, Red.
The doctor talks about it very briefly with the bullet should have ripped through him. But
Yeah.
that's about it.
I really like that moment because people tend to forget the super soldier serum just makes him strong and enhances his reflexes. It's not a healing factor, but a lot of books treat it like it is, and it always really annoys me.
Well, they have it in here that it is. He says I heal pretty fast.
Yeah, but it's not like
not Wolverine
Adamant.
level.
It's not Wolverine level as well.
Yeah, gotcha. No, I agree.
Yeah, but more
I
like,
like that.
But more like he could recover from if he gets medical attention, he could recover from a gut shot in a couple of days to a week, if not unlike normal people who would be.
They'd be in the hospital for months.
Yeah. Just since we're talking favorite scenes, for me, it's when he gets back and he goes to the ball game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, it's actually the Thor scene, but Ian, you already touched on that. But for me, my favorite scene is definitely him talking to the dad and his kid while they're sort of segregated away in the stands in the ball game, and the man's like, "Oh, we can get up if you like," and he's like, "No, don't be ridiculous," and he sort of tries to encourage the kid to become a Dodger, and then the father's just really offended. It's like, "Don't fill his head with ideas, mister. Don't play your jokes somewhere else," and stuff like that. I just find that really kind of interesting. I was kind of wondering if maybe, because I wasn't too sure, I wanted to see if the kid was ever named, because maybe that was based on an encounter with a real life ball player, maybe a real life ball player, within the context. Because when you do historical stuff like this,
it's not like it is going to end up being like Jackie Robinson or something.
Jackie Robinson influenced.
That would have been a little gimmicky, I think.
I don't know.
For a second there, I got real worried you were going to say I missed it being named and it was Sam Wilson.
Oh, that
would have been really cheap.
But I am a sucker for time travel things like this, where you find out the hero unintentionally sort of inspired someone who made a change. I know it's gimmicky, I know it's cheesy, but I really do kind of love it.
If that was the case here,
that's like the entire crux of Doctor Who historicals. So
I'm totally there with Jackie Robinson. I think that would definitely be problematic.
You be quiet, okay? You be quiet. Doctor Who is a documentary, okay?
The most historically accurate documentary, because it doesn't cut out all the aliens that we
Daleks won us World War II, okay? What are you talking about?
Daleks once.
I have a poster that actually confirms it. That poster really exists.
That's a historical artifact, damn it.
Can I just
museum?
Brief tangent? Tangent. The writer of that episode was in the town I was at university at, doing a TV show, and I bumped into him, and I immediately ran to the comic store, bought the Dalek to Victory poster, and got it signed by him, as well as a Sherlock thing, because he also wrote Sherlock episodes and stars as he's also
Mark Gatiss,
Sherlock's brother in Mycroft in those. I met him and did that. That was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I met Mark Gatiss. It's on my Twitter.
This is what's awesome about being across the pond, you know?
Oh, yeah. Also, Paul McGann. Also met Paul McGann.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. That is very clean.
I made a joke about Matt Smith's chin, and it made him laugh. He was like, I handed him my Day of the Doctor DVD to sign. I was like, oh, where do you want me to sign it? I was like, sign it on Matt Smith's chin. There's room.
Awesome.
Okay, so comics.
I just wanted. Sorry.
Go ahead, Doc.
I just wanted to mention. I think my favorite panel in this whole comic is this one right here,
where he's sitting down at the. Yeah,
that's a good one.
I just love that. Not just symbolically, but it's just a great image.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I
have a nitpick. So, Bucky, this bothered me at first, and I finally found the scene. So, Bucky just kind of gets blown up because he's like, oh, it's a bomb, but he doesn't jump. And that kind of does bug me a bit because the whole thing is his arm got stuck.
Yeah, like in the original comic as well.
Yeah, in both versions, it's that his arm got stuck on it. It's just a small thing, but it kind of makes Bucky seem
Gullible?
I guess. Like, he just kind of freezes up, and I understand that. It's just, with the hindsight of, oh, that's why his arm gets blown off, I don't know why that wasn't kept in. Like, just foreshadowing-wise, why you wouldn't make the specification of that. It's just a minor thing.
That's fine.
Bucky got stuck.
I always thought it was like he jumped at the last minute, but his arm still got like sort of caught in the explosion.
Yeah, his arm gets like caught on a nail or like the thing he rips out or whatever.
Yeah, or like a panel or something.
Can I also just ask, the plane takes off from England, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's in the air for like less than a minute before it blows up. As someone who has swam along the channel a little bit, for like 5 minutes and then got out because it was freezing. It was freezing, but I don't think it would be like freeze you in ice cold.
Well, like they actually talk about that a little bit in the original comic. He gets knocked into the water over the English Channel, and then currents take him up to the Arctic. So he's
is that a thing? I feel like we should fact check that.
There are currents because people swim the channel for like charity over here all the time. But like that's why you always have to have like a support staff just to fish you out in case you get ripped away. But
here's the original
drown
line
before
from the
then.
book. As for the rest, by some fantastic stroke of fate, I must have been frozen in an ice floe and then found by some Eskimos who thought I was a supernatural object, as you do. Then all those years being in a state of frozen suspended animation must have prevented me from aging.
And how does he just assume that?
Yeah, like here's the thing.
That's one of those fun,
guys,
classic
everyone
comics
strap
moments
in for
where
this.
the character just goes,
Everyone
I know
strap in for
science.
this, okay?
Guys,
Guys, hold on. Everyone strap in for this. Maybe Stan Lee isn't the best writer.
No!
No, seriously, I'm
You
inclined
take
to
that
agree.
back, Ian.
You're not a Stan Lee stan, Ian?
No.
Not really.
He's talented enough, but like
The woke-
I mean, that is a really hokey
Hey, look,
comic
woke people
booky
know
thing.
Stan Lee is an evil bastard hack, but we love him.
Not to mention that he used a racial slur in that line. So
Yeah, Eskimos.
There's a lot of that shit when you go through Stan Lee's bio.
also, there's some sexist stuff with Wasp in there too.
Again,
yeah.
With like a power.
Anything that Stan Lee wrote from that era.
You know, actually, I
the
did
guy
want
who created Stripperella. I'm just saying.
I do want to talk about one thing that I find really interesting, because this is like, what, a 4 or 5 issue series, right? And it takes me about 40 to 50 minutes to read through it all. And then there's the backup. That's the old Avengers comic by Lee and Kirby. And that is a single issue, and it takes me literally just as long to read through.
I couldn't finish it. Stan Lee is way too wordy.
I don't.
Actually, it takes about 20 minutes.
That kind of writing is why I don't read a lot of old comics.
I like Silver Age stuff. It's just Stan Lee that's too freaking wordy for me.
No, that's fair, man.
Yeah, like,
I found it funny that it took me just as long to get through a single issue. It really shows you that like we're doing a lot less with narration and stuff in modern comics than we used to.
John Green stuff, it's not that wordy.
If that's... sorry. Go ahead.
It's not Stan Lee, I don't think, because I've read Supergirl comics that are from not even the 60s, but the 70s. And I love Supergirl. She's my favorite character in all of fiction. But it is a chore for me to get through some issues of Daring Adventures of Supergirl. They are just the wordiest shit, and none of it matters.
I mean, it depends on the person. Like, there's certainly an over-explanation kind of thing, but it's not like those blocks of text. Like, Gardner... I guess it depends on the person, because like Gardner Fox, I find to be, well, not the greatest writer. He's more better with that, but then again, he wrote fucking thousands of 13-page comics, so I guess he's a master of concise stuff. So,
speaking of the single issue, can I just ask why everyone calls Namor Laughing Boy?
I have no idea.
Does he ever laugh?
60s had a weird slang back then.
It must be some weird nickname like Shellhead.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. If all early Stan Lee comics, because I've only read a few, but if all of them like read that long for like a single issue, just because of the thing, pray for me because I just ordered all of the Stan Lee Daredevil runs. So.
I was just going to bring that up.
Why would you do that to
It took me
yourself?
like 40 minutes to read each issue of the first 10. That is
25
really
minutes for
worth
me.
it.
Okay, so just block out the week is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just
Yeah.
don't read the narration and let the artists do their job.
Literally, that
I
is
just
what I
read the
do
dialogue.
not.
But I love reading the narration. I love them describing what's happening. Oh, Barda, we're falling through the floor.
Bardo was falling through the floor
Yeah.
10 times.
Yeah, that's the thing with Lee. It's like you're putting blocks on Ditko and Kirby's stuff.
Yep.
Don't do that.
Okay. Well, I think we're
No,
pretty
because
good on this.
Kirby did that to his own stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
if
true.
you read some of the
Yeah.
Fourth World stuff.
Yeah.
That's
I
probably
think
it
we're
was just the thing.
about done with this though, guys. So it was great having everyone on. Thanks so much for doing this. It's a lot of fun. We'll be back again next time. We did a DC book, then we did a Marvel book. We're gonna do something outside of Marvel and DC next
Fun.
week. I'll be posting a Twitter poll, so people go check that out and make sure to vote. I'll have 4 options up. Until next time, bye.
Bye.